Hi, this is Katie Proctor, the owner of BwP Picks in Portland, Oregon.
Which is where we are now. And this is comics critic Douglas Wolk.
And we came to tell you about a couple comics that came out this week that we find super interesting.
Super interesting.
The first one is, of course, Doomsday Clock, the Jeff Johns and Gary Frank sequel, kind of, to Watchmen.
Give it a minute. This is the lenticular cover. It's very pretty.
And in its way, very creepy, like so much about this comic. So one thing I noticed almost immediately about it is that the title of the story is That Annihilated Place. Now, if you've read Watchmen, the titles of all the chapters of all the original individual issues are parts of quotations that are revealed at the end of the issue that have something to do with that issue. What That Annihilated Place is a quotation from a sonnet called Ozymandias by Horace Smith. Not the one by Shelley.
Who's Horace Smith?
Horace Smith was a more or less justly forgotten poet who was a contemporary of Shelley's. They decided to have a competition to write sonnets about Ozymandias. Shelley wrote the famous one. Horace Smith did not.
Horace Smith also wrote one.
He also wrote one.
Okay.
From which That Annihilated Place is a line. The part of it that's quoted at the end is, "He meets some fragment huge and stops to guess what powerful but unrecorded race once dwelt in that annihilated place." What do we even make of this comic?
Well, it's dark. It is in a 1992 where the American dream has ended. Chaos reigns both at home and abroad. Nuclear war is imminent. Russia has invaded Poland.
In other words, basically where we were at the beginning of Watchmen, but 6 years after that.
Yes.
Yeah. As a consequence of the events of Watchmen.
Yes.
And it's very strange. I feel so uneasy about this comic, and I first got to read a preview of it a couple of days ago, and it's just been rattling around in my brain since then, which there's a lot to be said for. Like, the level of craft is incredibly high. It's basically everything that Jeff Johns does well, and also a couple of the annoying things that he does. Everything that Gary Frank does well, which is a lot. It's very, very much like a panel homage to Watchmen, and it goes in some completely unexpected directions. There's some genuine big surprises in it, and I'm still just really queasy about the whole enterprise.
Unpack the queasiness.
The queasiness is, first of all, like doing a sequel to a story that not only does not demand a sequel, but demands no sequel, whose creators have said, don't. That's a big part of it. But there's also, there's the political dimension you were talking about a little bit.
Yeah, so for me, there's something about taking Watchmen as a piece of political commentary and commentary on the meaning of superheroes that is itself such a dark story about superheroes. And one of the move in this book to pull Watchmen and that particular moment of dark feelings about superheroes into the mainline DC universe makes me so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
In terms of just sort of what we feel about what superheroes mean. Because the superheroes, this family of superheroes are not aspirational people on purpose, by design. And to put them in the same world as Superman, I have feelings about this.
Yeah, I enjoy having feelings, even if they're not great
Agreed.
feelings.
So the next book we're going to talk about is Maxwell's Demons, #1. It's new from Vault Comics, and our team on that is Denise Camp, Vittorio Astone, Edita Bidkar, and Adrian Wassel.
These are not names I know. Are these names that you know?
None of these are names I know.
And this is really, really good.
So this is a beautiful introduction into the life of a little boy named Maxwell, who has big fantasy world-making powers and is growing up in a household where he has a lot less power than that.
As Katie pointed out, it's sort of a Franklin Richards kind of fantasy, but it's like, what if Franklin Richards had a single dad who was kind of a terrible dad.
Yeah, this is, Franklin Richards in the Marvel Universe, as we know, is the child of Reed and Sue Richards, who are half of the Fantastic Four and who do their very best to be really super good parents. And they do a pretty good job given the cosmic powers of their kid. This is a kid with that kind of cosmic world-making, creative power and genius with a abusive dad who's having a rough time.
Yeah. And his fantasy also involves kind of a terrible father figure as well. So Maxwell's Demons here, it's really nicely executed. It's smart writing. The art is gorgeous. It reminds me a lot of Sam Keith, actually.
There's a lot of 19th century philosophical puns, which I'm very into.
Like Maxwell's Demon, yeah. And I've never heard of any of the people involved in this before and would not have known to pick it up had Katie not said, hey, look at this.
I also want to give a shout out to the very cute 2-page backstory written by Vita Ayala and drawn by Jen Bartel. It is a cute little witches having a dinner party backup, which I feel like we don't get a whole lot of 2-page backup stories these days.
Especially that cute.
Yeah. So my question for our viewers this week is, what makes you pick up a book like this? A book with creators maybe you don't know, from Vault Press, maybe a press you don't know. How do you find these gems? For me, it's often somebody else going, what makes you do that?
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
See you next week.